I haven't made a layout video in a while, so I thought I'd remake a layout video demonstrating some techniques using this Gannett data and the final 4 locations. Just to catch you up, I have inserted a layout and then inserted a map frame already 4 times, and I've kind of thought about how I want to lay out this page. So I've started with this layout, but man, there are a lot of ways that you could do this. I'm going to go ahead and insert my last close-up. I added a guide so that I could line these up. And what I'm doing is thinking about proximity for what are going to be my close-up maps. I wanted enough detail in my overview map, and then I'm going to add a small outline of Maine with just a dot marking where this part of the coastline is, so that you get a sense of how far north this is on the Maine coast. And then I've also got room for a title and data credits and things like that. So first, because it drives me absolutely insane, I'm going to get rid of the dynamic text. I just have a hard time looking at that, and I've clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. Just slightly below the halfway mark, draw a spot off the page. Okay, I am going to give credit to Esri for the base map, but I don't want to have to compose around it when it's so big. Okay, second, I think what I'd like to do, I eyeballed this, but I'd like to go into the properties. You can't see that, but I was clicking on the properties and look at the size. 3.1 might be adequate, so let's change it to 3.1 for the width, and the height, let's do 1 point. Let's stick with that. It's a little funky, but that's going to dial that in. I'm going to go in and set those all the same. So 3.1 and 1.72. This may prove to be too small, but there you go. Yeah, I can already tell our height is not going to be high enough. I settled on a height of 1.9, not that it matters. Okay, so then I can select all of these. I did adjust this to kind of get a margin around the edge that looks consistent, but I didn't worry about these two. I'm going to select them all and go to distribute and distribute them vertically. And that's going to evenly space them out for me. Okay, so now I have my 4 detail maps. I've got my locator map, or my overview map, and then I'll add my main map. So what I want to do here is activate each one of them, and then I need to zoom to one of the 4 points. Because I've activated this map frame, I have the correct data here. I can go into my attribute table. They're sorted descending, so I can highlight this first record and say zoom to. That's going to set up that first one. I'm going to back out of it, activate this one. I can double click. No, I can't. Right click, activate, and it should bring up that data. I believe I have to reopen this, so we'll just do it. I'm going to highlight the second one and zoom to, and then we'll see what happens if I go into this third one. I don't believe I can do this, but let's try it. Oh, it worked. Because it's all the same data. That's fabulous. And okay, finally backing out of this and activating my bottom map. We'll zoom to the final. Okay, now they're different sizes, and what we really want to do is set our scale to be the same on all 4 of these maps so that we're looking at them consistently. I think now that we've got them at least visible, I'm definitely going to want to change my base map. That's not drawing very well, and it's not very helpful, and I'll also be changing the symbology. But for now, I can see that this one is highlighted. clear that selection. Okay. I think what I'd probably want to do is zoom out a little bit on these so we get a little bit more of the surrounding context. Not too much more, but let's just play with that a little bit. Right now we're at a scale of 1 to 25,000. We want each inch on the page to represent more, so I'm going to bump that up to 30,000 and see what it looks like. Not enough, so let's try 50,000. Okay, I like the way that looks a little bit more. So what we can do is activate each one of these again. Is this putsy? Yes, it is. There are maybe shortcuts to doing this, but I tend to be a little brute force effort sometimes. So we're gonna, oopsie, we're gonna back out of that one. Starting to not like the scale of that, but let's just see how they look. Ooh, yeah, this one's gonna blow way up. Okay, and then finally. So we may wish to adjust this again, because this one's also gonna be zoomed pretty far out. Okay, so I think right now you need to decide what's the purpose of showing the close-up map. Do we want to see kind of the lay of the land, where each one of these is, or do we want to see where the sites are sitting kind of relative to their local context? If you want to show them relative to their local context, I would recommend sitting or staying with a graphic base map. Not this one because it's really blurry at this scale. I chose the ocean base map for this map because gannets tend to feed on continental shelves, so I thought it might help show kind of the ocean bathymetry, but that's neither here nor there. Let's activate this one, and instead of zooming to a particular one, I'll just zoom to the whole layer, which it's not letting me do for some reason. There we go. Okay, now we can see all 4 of them. They're kind of centered in here. We could make this map frame a little shorter because we don't really need some of this information at the top and bottom. It's a little extra, but we don't want to go too crazy. This will leave us quite a bit of room down here, which, you know, makes you question, would these be better served across the bottom? Would a different layout shape be appropriate? I guess the other thing about that, which I've mentioned early in the semester, is we don't really make formal maps like this anymore, but I think it's really good practice for us to talk about these cartographic things as we work. All right, don't hate me, but I just decided I wanted to do something completely different, so I just rearranged the whole page. Spreading this out a little bit more for more spatial context, and then put these in order geographically. I just dropped the inset map right below, so that they're in order that way. Okay, so now we can go back to thinking about what information we want to provide on the ground here. I'm going to activate this this map frame again, and I'm going to change out this base map. A couple things we can try. We could try using an aerial image. Oh no, what happened? The base map changed on all 5 of our maps, and that's because I was inserting the same map each time. You can change the scale, but different changes that you make to the data layers themselves are going to affect all of the maps that I was pulling from when I did my insert into the layout. So what we need to do is make a new map that has that I'll be able to control the base map of this overview map. And so I'm going to insert a new map. And all I'm going to do is bring in my final 4. So I'm going to, I can show you by doing it this way. And then in my new map, I'm going to right-click on the map and paste that way. And this one, I can go back and put my oceans base map on. And then what I'm going to do in my layout is delete this one, and I'm going to instead insert a map frame, and I'm going to pull from my new map down here and draw that space. So is cartography a live and learn? Yes. Is working with ArcGIS Pro a live and learn? Yes, of course it is. Okay. Let's see here. Now I need to reset my alignments here, but that's okay. I can work on that later. Okay, if we're going to show an aerial image, I'm definitely going to want to zoom in on these because at this scale, we aren't really catching the detail. So let's explore that a little bit by activating this one, and we'll change the scale back to something like 20,000. It still could probably be a little bit bigger. Let's go back to 15,000. At this scale, though, we definitely want to make sure we're using a transparent symbology for these. We don't want to cover interesting detail in our imagery because this is the area that we care about the most. So I would definitely need to go in and adjust this symbology. Let's try just working with the feature layer. We could do transparency. I also really despise the color green on the green, and I could change it up a little bit, especially because I made these so dark. But remember, you kind of want your symbology to relate between the two maps so that you know intuitively that they're connected to each other. All right, the other thing that we could consider is throwing the slope over this as kind of a helper. So let's explore that here. Here we've got our aerial image. We've made this layout transparent, or this polygon transparent. But what if we were to turn on that slope layer? And right now I've got it symbolized in a way, yeah, you don't quite see that, do you? And I think it's because I've got it set pretty transparent. Let's drop that down to 25% transparency. Oh, wrong one. We could try working with some different blend modes here and see if we can get it to pop a little bit more. This one is certainly more visible. In this case, I think what we'd want to do is make this completely transparent. So I'm going to go back into the symbology for my final areas. Oh, I do have transparency set still, so let's go back in here and make that 0. Okay, now we're cooking. All right, so I don't hate this, but I don't love it. You will learn that I am much better at critiquing maps because it's much easier for me to see readily kind of what's effective and what can be strengthened. But when I have to do it myself, it's challenging. So know that I really appreciate that when I see your maps. We have a good sense of where the really steep areas are. So we can see that even though this isn't being included in our area, we still have a lot of other habitat near here that would be very suitable. Okay, now the good news is those changes that we made were applied to all 4 maps, which is great. But what we trial and error. Change this one to 15. It works for all of them except this one. Okay, I've made a couple of adjustments here. Number 1, I went back into my map 3 and made the 4 final locations, the outline bigger. And then I added the other ones that met all 3 criteria. I added that back in using a similar kind of color scheme, but I think it helps to show the distribution that these belong to for that context. I mean, they aren't sitting as, you know, the only steep coastal non-road areas. All of these also qualify, they just weren't as big. But, you know, they definitely add to the potential habitat. Okay, and then, yeah, I adjusted the symbology and adjusted the size of all these. Next, the things you could think about doing, I asked you to put the sizes of the final locations on each map. So one way you could do that would be to add a table, which would be a little bit clunky, and I think it'd be a lot more effective, in fact, to just add text with that information right in here. Okay, so I typed some text in here and I can go to the text tab now to impact this. I can change the color. I obviously don't want it to be black on dark blue. Either a gray color that's somewhat subtle. White might be a little bit too brassy. You can also impact the size. So I've got this, this text piece here. I could add the areas this way. The other thing that you want to do is make sure you have a scale bar, and because these are all set to the same scale, one scale bar will suffice. This looks like a pretty decent spot for the areas of each. You could also set it below. The scale bar doesn't typically go at the top, but I think it would be okay here. So let's click on this guy and we're going to insert a scale bar. As you know, my favorite is a very simple line. And I have plenty of videos about editing these and how to clean them up. So I'm not going to go through that here, but this would be the place to start. Notice that it's referencing map frame 3. And map frame 3 is this thing. So this is going to be the wrong scale. And this is a good way for you to double check that. When you insert it here, you can go into the properties and adjust that here. So make sure that you are, it doesn't matter, well, these are, don't worry about these, but map frame 2 is what we want to be referencing when we make this scale bar. Okay, admittedly, this is pretty ugly. I really don't enjoy the disconnect between the color and the contrast. This is much easier to look at, and this is not easy to look at. So the one thing that's missing is the Maine locator, and I'm going to put it right here. And the way that I would do that is to insert a new map, first of all. It's going to be map 4. And then I'm going to add data and go look in the portal, ArcGIS Online. I'm going to search for Maine. Looks like this will work. We can just turn off the visibility of these interior ones. Now we can go back into our layout and we can insert a map frame, and we're going to draw from this new guy and plunk it in here. Maybe, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there, but let's just zoom in. All right. Okay, I'm going to fudge it this way. All right, what I want to do though for sure is get some kind of marker that indicates this area. And the way I do that is to get out of the activation mode. Okay, so to add an extent indicator here, they've changed this around a little bit. It used to be in the properties of the map frame, but right now with this guy selected, we go up to the insert and extent indicator and you drop this down. We want to indicate the extent of this map. This is not map 3, we need the map frame. And so if I click on this, this is what highlights, and so this map is called map frame nothing. And so I'm going to go back to this one, click it, extent indicator, map frame. It's confusing because there's the maps and then there's map frames as you add them. Okay, so on this guy, I can expand this again. I closed everything down. If I click on this, I can see the properties for it. it has drawn with a really bizarre symbol. Let's see here, let's not use a picture fill. Actually, probably not a solid fill either. Yeah, I don't hate that, but let's add, we need to add a stroke layer, and then we can. We don't want our stroke to be, let's make it a little bit wider. Get rid of our solid fill. Okay, oops. Apply that. Okay, I don't hate that, but we do now need to get rid of this border. Okay, so I'm going to right click and going into the properties. There we go, border, none. Okay, now we're in business. Okay, so we could keep going on this all day long. The map needs a few more things. A scale bar, you might slide this up a little bit. Definitely want to make it clear that the scale bar is referencing this map. So maybe this could be moved up here. Yeah, some information down here, including author and title, and data credits. Okay, that's it.